Cinnamon Rage here, and just going to do something a bit different to the channel today. I'm going to go through how you create, or how certainly I create, iRacing liveries for the team I race for, Sim Party Racing, and just going to go through everything really, where you find the skins to download, have a look at what the template file includes. I'm going to be doing it in Affinity Designer, but essentially the exact same rules apply to Photoshop or GIMP, I guess, as well. Then I'm going to go through how you actually preview the designs as you're working on them. I'm going to go through just sort of setting up some of the designs as well before moving on to the spec maps, which is where you define like the reflectiveness, the matteness of the paint. And then at the end, I'll go on and describe how you actually upload the TradingPaints so that you can use them for your team or yourself. So yeah, let's kick off with a look at the iRacing Beta UI. We actually come to looking at the iRacing UI, and you can see just loading the UI. If you go to my content, you can see a list of your cars, and just picking the Dallara P217 just to have a look at. You can see there that in the preview of the car model, it's actually got one of the skins that we use for SPR, and it's this that I'm essentially going to be replicating onto Dallara IR18. If you click on paint, you can get in, and looking at the paint your car section, if you select that, then you can see the model options on the right, and there's an option to download template. That template is a Photoshop file which will include everything you need to actually go on and paint and create your own livery. Now, I don't own the IR18, so someone has actually sent me this, but if you actually just go into store and just search for it, so we'll just search for Dallara here, and then click in the ellipsis and go to car info, you can see there the car that we're going to be skinning. So we can still view the model, but there is no option unless you own it to actually download the template to paint. So we're going to leave this open because we're going to use it quite a bit. But what we're going to do next is we're going to jump across to Affinity Designer, Photoshop, whatever tool you're using, and have a look at what the actual template file includes. So here we have the template file, and this template is what you get when you download it. We're looking at it here in Affinity Designer, which is what I use instead of Photoshop. To be honest though, the way it works is pretty much a copy of Photoshop, so yeah, same rules apply. This is 30 quid one-off payment when it's on sale compared to 120 quid a year for Photoshop, so that's why I like it. It's pretty good, and you do end up essentially with the exact same program as Photoshop as far as your needs for this are. So here we have the three parts that make up the template, and this is the custom spec map, which is what defines the mattness of the paint or the shininess of the paint. Then we have the turn off before exporting TGA, and that file is basically just some of the decals, etc. And then finally you have paintable area. Now the paintable area is where we're going to be doing the majority of the work, because that's what the skin really looks like under all the shininess and the decals. A handy hint before you start though, expand the turn off before and turn on the wire. This will save you a lot of time. It gives you an idea of the shape of the car. It shows you the white lines as the curvature of the car. The green lines that you see, they're actually reflective of panel gaps, so they're quite good for lining up certain paint styles, etc. So yeah, it really does help at the start if you have your spec map turned on. Not your spec map, sorry, your wireframe turned on. And then you can just see there's a lot of stuff like the carbon fibre parts, etc., which you're as well leaving because the game will overwrite them anyway, even once you export. That's where you get the masks. The mask itself is just the greyish bits between the panels, just to make it easier to focus on what you're allowed to actually change. And you get some other blocks like sponsors and that, which we won't use. Inside the custom spec map, you can see it's just black just now. We are going to come back and we are going to do quite a bit to this, but we will ignore it for the moment. This deserves its own section. There are certain colours you use in a spec map, and you can see there I've saved them in this SPR design, so the pinks and the greens that we're going to use when we actually do our proper spec map a wee bit later on. So yeah, I'm just going to go away, save this out somewhere so that I can actually make some edits to it now. So now that we've got the file here, what we're going to do is we're going to make a wee change and just test previewing it. So that we can actually see what changes we're making. So again, this is a car looked like before, all dark blue. We've turned on the wireframe, so we're going to go in, we're going to export which is save as if you're using Photoshop. You want to pick TGA or Targa, depending on how your application describes it. And then you want to just navigate to it's in your documents, iRacing Paint, and then your car name. And then the name of the file you actually want to give it is car underscore, and then your 6-digit iRacing number. And then you just save. And if we actually switch across to the iRacing UI and the car model, you can actually see that's the changes made immediately. And so that's really what you need to do when you're previewing, when you're testing things, making sure things have lined up. So yeah, and then if you make another change, you can just export it again and then have another wee look. But what we'll do quickly is we'll actually just give it a different color as well. So I'm just going to drag in a box and just give it another color. We're picking green here because green is going to be our kind of feature color for SimParty, but you can see just like that, the paint updates and you get to see what your car now looks like. So yeah, this will be your friend once again. Just do this. I used to always do it actually in game in a test session, but it's so much quicker if you do it here, because in the test sessions you have to Control R to refresh the paintwork. So we're going to move on again. So you can see here that the car's pink. I've actually chose pink because green is quite bad for actually hiding the body lines, so I've just made it pink just now to test. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to go away and drag in some of my assets you can see in the bottom right for a livery. I'm just going to fast forward it, skip chunks of it as well, because you know what you want your design to look like. You don't want it to look like mine. We're just going for that standard sort of black, green, white design that we've seen in another one. So just going to fast forward as I say, and I will come back in and talk through what the next stages are once you've got your design finalized. So let's say at this point then that we are pretty much happy with our general design, but as you can see the grey's not very interesting, the green's not that interesting either. So we're going to move on and look at spec map, which is what's going to make it pop. So here we're going to actually now look at the spec map. So we're going to turn on the spec map grouping, and you can see it's all black and we don't want that. So we're going to draw a square and we're going to give it this lovely slightly weird pink, which is what our default matte is on our paint. We're going to export it. Same name as before, car underscore spec underscore your 6-digit iRacing number. So I said same name, very similar name. So you can see here it gives it that kind of like half shine without being full chrome kind of Forza 5 vibe. But you can see certain aspects don't work. The white isn't there. The half metallic gives the white a bluish sheen. The SPR logos and stuff don't have the right feel to them. The logos are half shiny as well. So we're going to need to bring them across and make some adjustments to them. So we're going to go in, find the dark grey panels at the back, and we're just going to copy that layer from the paintwork section. We're going to take it up here and we're going to paste it in. So obviously it's grey, but if you use the FX tool down the bottom, which exists in Photoshop as well, give it a colour overlay, and the colour we use is just slightly darker shade of pink, and it's just going to give it a bit more luster, shall we say, on the paintwork. We're then going to repeat this process for the white section. So again, copying from the paintwork section, copying into the spec section that you see at the top, custom map, but we don't want it white. White is just a sort of default colour. So we're actually going to go in and we're going to colour overlay it with bright green. Bright green is the maximum matte texture. Bright red is the maximum metallic. So shades of green and red will give you those in-between tones, but for the white, we want it just pure white. And you can see there how much the white then pops. However, our logos and our kind of like team designation is still just, they're not right. So I've got a wee bit of work to do on them. So if you can excuse my bad alt tabbing, we're going to jump across and go down again. So we created groups for logos and sponsors separately, and the reason for this is we can paste the logos and then we can just again colour overlay them with the FX, give them bright green so that they show up as very matte colours which will contrast with the background. We bring across the sponsors and we again colour overlay, but this time we do it in black. The reason it's black is black will get the default texture that the car would have had, which is generally kind of paint texture. So if we do this, and then we're just also going to copy across the decal aspects from the game as well, the car decal, and then export it so that they get their default textures as well. Once it reloads, you can see that the SPR is now matte. Our Ray-Ban and Shell V-Power logos are now default texture, which is really nice. And you do see kind of like as if there's a shine to the SPR, but that's just an aspect of how it works within the car model view. But it is basically matte. So it starts to look, just the different textures just look a little better. Numbers are a bit awkward. Normally you've got a square panel for the numbers, but since they're flush on this, it's going to be a wee bit harder to get them quite right. We're also going to set the safety cage. I mean, kind of, I don't even know what they call it. And we're going to set that as like super shiny black, but we might actually try it. Maybe not so much super shiny. We might try matte black, which sometimes can make an actual blacker black. So we'll go green again for this, just to kind of try and minimize the effect of it. And again, every time I need to export, you can see I just export over the top of the previous file, and that's just the easiest way to do it. So you can instantly see it's much closer to how our old car used to be in this case. So yeah, it's beginning to come together. You can see the spec map is, the reason I copy and paste rather than, is just because it will immediately put them in the right place so that they're exactly on top of where they were from within another section. So yeah, that number is going to be a wee bit annoying, just because obviously you can't create a shape that covers that number. It has to cover all numbers. What I'm going to do now is just bring up some of the extra logos, and we're going to switch them to half transparency for the front of the car and for the nose of the car, so you can actually see, oh, I didn't do it on the front, it's done it on the end plates, it's not done it on the nose. The implication then is that I have missed the nose item. So I'm going to scroll down here, find it, yep, there it is in green, so matte colour, but we want it semi-reflective on the nose, so I'll just export again. It is a shame that you can't automate the exporting, so that every time you save it exports to the right place, but just given that metallic texture on the nose again just creates that bit of variance, makes the car look that bit more interesting. The white text at the side though is not sticking out quite as much as I'd like, so I'm just going to stick a wee border on it, apply a stroke to it, and do the same again. You can see I've left this on. I only actually need to make the change within the paintwork section, and I'll do the same again for the other side of the car, and then we'll export and once again review. You will spend a significant amount of your life just exporting, review, export, review. So you can see there we've got our kind of split of the thirds that we like to use within SPR of the green, white and black. And yeah, just going to go on and probably spend a little bit of time tinkering, and in fact I will spend a significant amount of time tinkering after this video has been published. Just making a wee change here again, just probably switching the front wings to the same as the back, just because the white is just a wee bit heavy, I think, on the front of the car. And again, I need to make adjustments to the spec map for the text that goes on top, because the black is now going to be that half metallic that we see in the back of the car. That sort of silky texture, satin, sorry, I think is what the car companies call it when they do that livery. And yeah, there's just going to be a bit of tinkering until I get it just the way I like it, to be honest. So there is certain aspects to this that it is worth noting. That pink that I use for the spec map gives this lovely green shade, but it doesn't always work for all colours. So we have one of our teams is pink, and what you'll see is when we actually go in here and set the colour to pink, what we're going to find is that the actual pink that we make is going to be quite purple once you actually view it inside iRacing. So set as pink, we're going to export it, and what you're going to see is the colour itself comes across less purple, less pink, and a bit more kind of grape purpley kind of colour. So the way I found to get around this is I go to the base colour and then I pick a really dirty pink, almost brownish, and that, for some reason, I don't fully understand what's the maths of it is, gives you a much nicer pink out of it, much closer to the pink you actually picked. So it's just worth noting that depending on the colours you use, you might not be able to keep reusing it, the same one for all the colours each time. I'm going to revert it back now though, because we are going to stick with the green paint for our actual livery, since that is our main colours. So to finish this video off, I'm just going to show you how to upload to TradingPaints. So you go into the My Paints, search for the car you want, in this case the Dallara IR18, and you can see no paint is selected. So you want to go to Paint Options, choose New Paint, upload a paint, and then select a file. Seems like a lot of steps. Just again, navigate to wherever you've been saving these files and you select your car underscore your number. TradingPaints knows your number, so that even if you pick it with the wrong name, it will know to import it. 12 megs I think is a wee bit bigger when you're using Affinity Designer than if you use Photoshop. So that's us. We've uploaded our paint, but we also want our spec map. So again, Paint Options, and then you'll see Add Spec Map. Select a file. Now here you're not going to actually pick a target file, you're going to pick a MIP file. So this MIP file is generated by iRacing. Once you view your paint, it will convert the spec.tga file to a spec.mip file, and it's that you want to upload. You'll also find if you want to upload another spec file, you first of all have to remove the spec file that you already have on it. So you can see there, remove spec map. If you actually choose a new paint, it clears the old spec map file anyway, and you can just upload normally. So that's really it. You just need to basically race away, and that's the livery that everyone will pull down from TradingPaints. So hopefully this has been helpful. I think it does make quite an interesting car, and you really get a hang of the spec maps and whatnot with it. And yeah, I would recommend Affinity Designer. But if you have any questions, please leave a comment below and I will try and answer them. Thanks for watching, and maybe see you in a future video.